Hi everyone, and welcome back to VetEcho, your passionate vet student podcast. I'm Jade, and as always, we're with Margot.
Hi.
And Iriana.
Hi.
And today, we're exploring a topic that feels both familiar and surprisingly overlooked: the ecological impact of animals. Not just the animals themselves, but everything connected to them: litter, poop, hair, ecosystems, and protected areas. Okay, let's get into the science and begin with cats and their impact on biodiversity. In Europe, domestic cats pose a real ecological threat. The effects of domestic cats on biodiversity have received global attention, and several studies have reported that a high number of wildlife is being killed by cats annually. For instance, in a 2013 study, it has been estimated that cats kill between 1.3 to 4 billion birds and 6.3 to 22.3 billion mammals annually in the US alone. There's another example in Europe. According to a study published in 2019, between 30% and 26% of garden birds' mortality in parts of France, and Belgium could be attributed to cat predation. In the Global Invasive Species Database, cats are listed among the hundreds invasive species with greatest negative impact on native animals. Globally, cats are implicated in the extinction of 40 of 87 extinct birds, 21 of 45 extinct mammal species, and 2 of 10 extinct reptile species. These numbers clearly show that cat predation is a real ecological issue in Europe and not just a minor anecdote. If you want to know more about the impact of cats on biodiversity, you can consult the VKM Report of 2023, entitled Assessment of the Risks Posed by Domestic Cats, Felis catus, to Biodiversity and Animal Welfare in Norway, published by the Norwegian Scientific Committee for Food and Environment. We will put the link in the descriptions, and a lot of the data used here is from this document.
Interesting.
Yeah. And given this European data, do you think that cat owners in your community realize how significant the predation risk is?
I don't have a specific example, but honestly, I don't think most cat owners realize it. First, the numbers are really impressive, so that's a bit hard to picture for a lot of people. But for me, the problem is that we tend to underestimate their predatory instinct because we think domestication has softened it a lot, which in reality is not really the case, and it's not always visible. Not every cat brings their prey back home, so owners don't necessarily see what happens outside. And about that, there is a TV show in France where they put GPS trackers on cats to see what they were doing outdoor. And the owner are always a bit surprised and shocked by how many kilometers their cats covered in a day. And I think it's really funny because it really shows how active outdoor cats can be and how much we underestimate it.
Yeah, that's true.
The adventurous cats. I think that many people whose pets have outdoor access do not necessarily see that the prey that is killed, like said Margot. I know that from both legal and conservation perspective, cats are considered as a threat, especially in protected habitats. In Reunion Island, according to the 2021 to 2030 National Action Plan, they are indeed a very significant threat to some of our endemic species, such as the Barrow's petrel and the Mascareне black petrel, on which they have a strong demographic impact. However, a 2022 study published in the journal Biological Invasions showed that unknown cats, particularly semi-feral cats, have much larger home ranges, visits birds' colonies, and hunt actively, whereas hound cats have more restricted movements and do not exploit their sensitive areas. So the Reunion National Park also specified that some feral cats are proliferating in natural areas and can travel long distance up to 12 kilometers, according to some estimates, to hunt. And therefore, some owners in Reunion Island must be underestimating the issue, particularly regarding semi-ferals or non-domestic cats, which are the most dangerous for endemic wildlife. and there are awarenesses campaigns and management strategy for example, capturing or neutering. They are implemented by the national park, but for this to be effective, owners need to be more informed about how their cats have an impact, even if they stay at home on some evening, and they should be encouraged to take part in these efforts, like, as we said, the neutering, the control, and the responsible ownership.
Yeah, that's true. And about that, I also have a question for you.
Yeah.
Kind of linked to what you said. Do you know some measures to balance cat welfare and freedom with conservation concern when advising clients?
I think there are several ways to reduce the impact of cats without impacting their well-being. For example, we are seeing more and more Casio on social media, which are basically large and secure outdoor structures for cats. So, of course, it's possible to adapt all of your garden, for example, with secure fences that completely prevent the cat to go out of this zone. And these adaptations are very stimulating for cats, even more when the area have elevated walkways and constructions to let them climb, jump, hide, etc. And to keep them even more stimulated and active, you can also hide, for example, small portions of food in different places, spots, so they can hunt for it, for example. And it's basically reproduce what they will do in a natural setting. Also, some owner can take their cat outside on a harness. This works very well if the cat has been accustomed to it and accepts it. The advantage of these two solutions is that they also improve the cat safety. Every year in Europe, for example, it's estimated that hundreds of thousands of cats are victims of road accidents, and the difference in life expectancy is also very important. An indoor cat lives on average 12 to 15 years, while a cat with free access to the outdoors tends to live around 4 to 7 years, according to some studies. So it's a solution that is very secure even for your cats. And as a last resort, if you still let your cats go outside freely, it's best to avoid dusk and nightfall, because these are the times where wildlife is most vulnerable. Like small mammals and birds are more active, more exposed, and their ability to avoid danger is reduced in the twilights. So this is also when a cat is more effective at hunting.
Yeah, you're right. I have some direct measures. For example, encourage hunting behavior in a safe way. Like, as you said, we can do it in the cages. And the owners can provide environmental enrichment that allow cats to express their natural predatory instinct. That can include like feather toys or wand toys to mimic prey movement. The food dispensing puzzle, of course, and the short structured play session several times a day, and that can reduce boredom, improve welfare, and may decrease the cat motivation to hunt outdoor. We also have the use of non-coercitive, I precise it, deterrent device. And there are some tools that can reduce the cat hunting success without causing harm. For example, the bells on collars. Although those are not ideal because cats have sensitive hearings and constant noise can cause stress. But we have the brightly colored bird safe colors covers, which make cats more visible to prey species, especially birds. And for some long-term measures, we have the neutering, and that is one of the most effective long-term strategy to limit the overpopulation. And we can also talk about the identification and the responsible ownership. With the microchipping and keeping cats identifiable greatly increase the likelihood that lost cats are returned home and helps control the number of unknown cats in the community.
Yeah, I agree with all of what you said, girls. And I would add, well, it's not something to add, but I just want to highlight the fact that it's very interesting when we talk to owners to highlight the fact that, like you said, Margot, that it's safer also for their cats and not just for the ecological impact, because like clients will be more attentive when you say it's also for your cats that cats use, or go out with a harness with your cat. It's also safer for your cats. They will like click more.
No.
Then, before we move on to dogs, let's talk about something we all use if we have cats or other small pets like rabbits, hamsters, or guinea pig, which is bedding and litter. At first glance, it may seem harmless, but it actually has a notable ecological footprint. Most cat litters are made from clay, silica, or wood pellets. Girls, have you ever thought about how the type of cat litter we use could affect the environment? And do you know which type of litter is the less eco-friendly?
To be honest, I had never really thought about it deeply, but when you do, you realize that the cat litter is often made from some clay, as you said, and that the clay is typically obtained through strip mining, a very destructive process that removes large areas of soil and vegetation, which can devastate entire ecosystems. And once the clay is used as litter, it poses further problems. The traditional clay litter is generally not biodegradable, meaning that after use, it ends up in landfill and simply accumulates over time. And moreover, clay litter often generates a lot of dust when poured or disturbed, and this dust frequently contain crystalline silica, which can be harmful for respiratory health, both for cats and for humans. That means from both an environmental and health standpoint, clay-based litter is far from ideal. And for a greener alternative, there are several biodegradable options that are much more sustainable and less hazardous. Example include litter made from recycled paper, corn, wood, such as sawdust or wood pellet, wet grass or coconut fibers. And these materials tend to produce far less dust and source from renewable or recycled resources, and can often decompose more easily than clay. Using these eco-friendly litters helps reduce the reliance on destructive mining practice, lower the amount of waste sent to landfill, and can improve indoor air quality. Encouraging cat owners to consider this alternative is a practical way to reduce the environmental cost of pet care without sacrificing the comfort of health of their animals.
Yeah, I agree. I knew there were differences between type of cat litter, especially because some material are, as you said, way more easier to recycle. And yes, when they are biodegradable, they come from renewable resources, or they don't need heavy chemical treatments. They are often way more eco-responsible. As you said on the clay litter, I've seen like there is one type that is made from bentonite that is really non-eco-friendly, as we could say. And as you said, it's a big environmental issue because, for example, bentonite is extracted through open pit mining. And as you said, it destroys a large area of land. And it also consumes a lot of water to produce. So it's quite complicated. And another point to consider when we talk about litter is the chemical compounds some litter release, for example, perfumed or antibacterial litters that can emit volatile substances. And even that, it's not only less eco-friendly, but it's also a risk factor for cats because it can irritate cat hairway, for example.
So the litters have so many bad points.
Yeah, actually, yes. And so, as you said, indeed, the clay litter is the less eco-friendly. And sadly, it's also the most used for cat litters. It's a resource-intensive material, and according to the plaidoirie from Cats for the Future in 2023, about 612,000 tons of used mineral litter are generated each year in France alone.
That's a lot.
Yeah, enormous. And they estimate that 90% of cat litter is of mineral origin, which is as you said, girls, non-renewable and largely not recyclable. Okay, sorry. Switching to a plant-based litter could reduce that waste significantly. The same Cats for the Future report suggests that substituting mineral litter for vegetable litter could cut up to 40% of litter-related waste. In addition, they claim that one cat can save around 33 kilograms of CO2 per year when using a vegetable litter instead of a mineral one. And it's not just cats. Small pets like rabbit, guinea pigs, and hamsters also need bedding. And that often comes in processed wood shaving or paper pellets, which require energy for processing and packaging, and sometimes are shipped from a long distance. Do you girls know any eco-friendly alternatives for small pet bedding?
I think that there is the recycled paper, maybe the untreated wood pellet, the straw, or the hay. Maybe we need to adjust it according to the species.
Yeah, actually, it really depends on the species because small pets have often very sensitive respiratory system, especially bird, rodent, and rabbits. And that means we need to be very careful with any bedding that produces dust or fine particles. With dusty litters, we often see issues like rhinitis, conjunctivitis, chronic sneezes, and even more serious respiratory infections. And another important point is that softwood shavings from conifers, like pine or cedar, should really be avoided, for example. When they are in contact with urine, they release aromatic phenols, a family of volatile compounds naturally present in this wood. And these phenols can irritate the respiratory tract, weaken the immune system, and in some species, even stress the liver. And because of this, conifer shavings are generally not recommended for small animals. So the range of safe and eco-friendly options is a bit narrowed. The most reliable choice, as you say, Iriana, recycled paper bedding can be. We have also hemp, flax, and aspen shaving, which comes from hardwoods and don't release these aromatic phenols that we talked about. And these options are low dust, absorbent, and much safer for delicate respiratory systems. And for guinea pigs, there is a very eco-friendly option that is fleece bedding. It's basically a washable textile system with a waterproof bottom layer and an absorbent core, and it keeps the surface dry, is extremely comfortable, and also reduces the risk of pododermatitis. And it's often actually recommended after surgery to avoid complications. The reasons are simple. The soft surface prevents frictions on the incision, limits irritation, and also reduce the risk of contamination compared to loose bedding that can stick to the wound, for example. And its only limitation, I would say, is droppings, because a single guinea pig can produce up to 200 poops a day. So daily spot cleaning is essential to keep the environment hygienic and prevent infection. Because if it's not the case, then this litter lost all of its advantage in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, you're right. And I like that you brought a veterinary perspective to this topic, because we need to keep in mind that we need to have like a balance between ecological impact and health for the animals, because sometimes the most eco-friendly is not necessarily the most friendly for the animal.
Yeah, for sure.
So girls, to conclude this part, if you had to give one advice to a pet owner about litter choice for cats or bedding for small mammals, what would you suggest?
I think it's important to remind pet owners that there are really good eco-friendly litters options out there, and that you don't have to sacrifice quality or comfort and health, as you said, for your animal to make a responsible choice. Every animal has its own preferences, and honor too, because some litters control others better, are easier to clean. So there is not a perfect solution for everyone, but it's worth experimenting a little bit to find the right balance between all of this. and what works for the animal, the owner, and the planet.
Yeah. Now, let's change the subject a little bit and talk about the impact of dogs on biodiversity and soil quality. In 2022, the British Ecological Society published a study done in 4 nature reserves around Belgium that estimated that dog feces and urine add on average 11 kilograms of nitrogen and 5 kilograms of phosphorus per hectare per year. And in high-use areas like Bath, deposition of nitrogen could reach 175 kilograms nitrogen per hectare per year under a scenario where dogs are leashed. When owners picks up all feces but urine remains, the study showed that phosphorus inputs drop by 97%, but nitrogen only dropped by 56% because urine is a major nitrogen source. So, we saw that dog excrements can really enrich the soil with nitrogen and phosphorus. What do you think that does to the plants that normally live in these nutrient-poor habitats, and how might that affect the animals that depend on them?
In naturally nutrient-poor habitats, this input could promote the growth of opportunistic plants that take advantage of the increased nutrient availability. To the detriment of specialist or less competitive species. Such change can disrupt the local biodiversity, affecting insects, so small mammals, and other organisms that rely on the original plant communities. At a larger scale, an excess of nitrogen and phosphorus can contribute to eutrophication, a process in which water bodies or soils become overly enriched in nutrients, leading to excessive plant and algae growth that can deplete oxygen and harm aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems.
Yeah, and in addition to nutrient pollution, dog excrement and even dog hair can carry residues of veterinary drugs, such as antibiotics and anti-parasite treatments. These contaminants don't just vanish once they leave the pet, they can enter the ecosystems and affect biodiversity. For example, in 2023, a Dutch study showed that dogs treated with common flea and tick compound excrete them in hair and urine. Indeed, scientists detect substances like fipronil, imidacloprid, and fluoroner in dog hair, and even found fipronil and other parasiticides in bird nests built with that fur showing a potential pathway for exposure of wild birds. Another study in London looked at ponds where dogs swim and found significant concentration of imidacloprid. Like, the number is 309 nanograms per liter, and for fipronil, 32 nanogram per liter in those water bodies. That means these insecticides are washing off treated dogs directly into the environment, potentially harming aquatic organisms. We also know from ecotoxicological studies that fipronil and imidacloprid are harmful to non-targeted species. They can impair mobility in copepods, increase oxidative stress in mussels, and generally disrupt aquatic ecosystems. Same thing concerning antibiotics. A 2023 report by the European Environment Agency highlights that many veterinary antibiotics are excreted almost unchanged, meaning that significant fraction of what pet ingest passes through the environment. This can lead to localized hotspots of antibiotics residues, especially in areas heavily used by dogs, like popular trails or parks. Such exposure can alter soil microbial diversity, affect nutrient cycling, and in some cases, favor the emergence and spread of antimicrobial resistance, which is a concern not just for wildlife, but also for humans, as we saw in our previous episode on antimicrobial resistance. Considering what we just said about antibiotics, what could veterinarians or pet owners do to minimize the environmental impact?
Well, like we said in the previous episode, the most important thing is really to respect the proper use of antibiotics. So correct dosing, no self-medication, avoiding unnecessary treatments, and sticking strictly to the prescribed duration. if we already get that right, we have reduced a big part of the problem. But beyond that, there are other simple actions that can really reduce the environmental impact. For example, picking up the feces of treated animals is essential because antibiotic residues, as you said, can persist and spray in the environment. Veterinarians also have a key role in explaining these risks and raising awareness, especially about why antibiotics shouldn't be used just in case, as we already said. And pet owner can also help in other ways. For example, by bringing leftover pills back to the pharmacy or clinic instead of throwing them in the trash or flushing them in the toilet, because discarded antibiotics can leak into the soil or water system and end up spreading active residues in the environment, which also contribute to pollution and to antibiotic resistance.
Yeah, you're totally right, and I fully agree with you. Now, before we finish talking about dogs, there are two more environmental aspects we need to cover: poop bags and dogs off-leash in protected areas. First, poop bags. Picking up on dog waste is essential for reducing nutrient pollution, but the bags themselves have an environmental footprint. In Europe, it's estimated that 17 to 20 billion dog waste bags are used each year. Most of these are plastic or compostable only in industrial conditions, meaning they persist in nature or landfills for years, slowly releasing microplastics. Do you girls know some alternative to the classical plastic poop bag?
We can use paper bags in some cases, or proper scooper with a shovel, and then stock them in suitable containers until a proper elimination. But there are also some biodegradable or compostable bags. They are usually made from plant-based materials such as cornstarch or from oxo-biodegradable plastic. And under industrial composting condition, plant-based bags, typically degrade in 3 to 6 months, while in home composting or natural environment, degradation can take 6 to 12 months or longer. And these bags are generally resistant to normal and slightly soft feces, especially if they are thick enough, superior or equal to 20 microns. Though very watery droppings may require a double bag. And plant-based bags are preferred over oxo-biodegradable plastics as they decompose more completely and safely.
Yeah, I've also seen you can use reusable silicone or fabric pouches. They are waterproof, easy to wash, and it avoids single-use plastic things. So you just have to empty them at home and clean them like any other pet accessory. I think it depends, obviously, of the type of consistency of the poop, but it's an idea. And there is also another very simple everyday solution. For example, you can reuse plastic packaging, small cardboard boxes, or any sturdy material that comes with your grocery. Most of the time when we get home from shopping, all that packaging goes straight to the bin, but some of it can actually have an intermediate life, and before being thrown away can be used like that, and plus it's free. So
that's very interesting, and I've never heard about the silicone pouches, and it's very interesting. I think I'm gonna try it. It's more like eco-friendly, because I'm not incriminating anyone with this episode. Like, I do some mistakes too. I have a dog. I use plastic poop bag, and sometimes it happens when I don't pick up after my dog. Yes, I'm sorry for that, but just to like a little disclaimer, we are not incriminating anyone with this episode.
Yeah, sure.
Like, we all make mistakes.
It's an informative content.
Yeah,
and the goal is to like show some options and alternatives that can be implemented in everyone's life.
Yeah, sure.
And even us, when doing our research, we like learn. Yeah, like the silicone pouches. It's insane. Never heard of it. Okay, so now the last point of this episode is the impact of off-leash dogs in protected areas. Even friendly pets can disturb wildlife. Dogs trigger stress response in many species, causing animals to flee, interrupt feeding, or abandon nests. And studies in European reserves shows that the presence of dog can reduce wildlife activity by up to 40%, particularly affecting ground nesting birds and small mammals. In some European reserves, areas frequently visited by off-leash dogs see lower breeding success, smaller population of small mammals, and changes in bird assemblages. So in short, leash rules and responsible bag use aren't just bureaucratic, they're essential ecological protection measures. Do you think people are well aware of the impact their dogs can have on the local wildlife?
I think it's been talked about more and more, yes. In my town, for example, in France, the local council has completely closed off access to a part of the forest to allow biodiversity to regenerate. These are small areas, really a very small percentage of the total surface area, but it shows a real desire to raise public awareness of the impact of dog on the local wildlife. However, there is still some reluctance and a real lack of awareness, I would say, because even with clear indication signal and explanation on the importance of this protected zone, we still see people entering this area with their dogs as if the ban did not apply to them. So there's efforts being made. There is communication, but the reality is that there is still a long way to go before everyone truly understands the issue and the importance of this protection.
On my side, I think it isn't always well perceived. Many people associate the impact of dogs to nuisance because of the odors and the dirt, and less to the ecological impacts such as pollution and modification of the ecosystems because of the nutriments. But vet can have a key role in sensibilization, informing the owners. They can make closer the animal care and the conservation.
Yeah, and I think the most difficult part of the communication and the education of people for this topic is that many people don't really understand the problem here and think that it's because some dogs are not friendly and they should not be off-leash because they're not friendly, but it's not only the personality of the dog that count here, it's the all ecological impact. And I think that's that a lot of people don't really get.
Yeah, and I think there is a problem with ecological issue. Most of the time we tend to point our finger at a huge community, but not the individual in itself. And I think many people will think, for example, their dog in itself, just one dog, it does not a lot. But if everybody thinks like that, at the end, it creates a lot of impact.
Yeah. Okay, so now, last question for you girls. If you could pick one thing every vet should tell pet owners about their environmental impact, what would it be?
Your pets have an ecological impact, but as responsible owners and pet lovers, we can all together minimize the impact without sacrificing their well-being. So let's collect the dejection and choose more durable materials, favor sterilization, or things like that.
Yeah, I would say basically the same. Our pets interact with the environment every single day through the spaces they walk in, the waste they leave behind, and the products we choose for them. And all of these tiny decisions shapes the ecosystem around us far more than what we think, as we saw. And it's not only about having zero waste, zero ecological impacts, but more about being aware of it and of this issue and trying to minimize them.
Yeah, I fully agree with you two girls. Your answers were very complete. So now we can pass to the conclusion of this episode. Pets are more than just companions. They are part of a complex ecological web. The environmental impact of pets is real, measurable, and deeply interconnected with biodiversity and ecosystem health. As veterinarians and future veterinarians, we have a unique opportunity to promote practices that protect animal welfare and the planet. It's not about guilt, it's about informed care, stewardship, and stewardship for future generations. In this episode, we focused mainly on companion animals like cats and dogs, but of course, the ecological impact of the animal world is much broader. From livestock production to the environmental footprint of veterinary medicine itself, there's a lot more to explore. So if you're interested in an episode diving into those topics, don't hesitate to let us know. Until then, thank you for listening to VetEcho, and we hope this episode helps you see the broader ecological picture and inspires changes. Until then, thank you for listening to VetEcho, and we hope this episode helps you see the broader ecological picture and inspires changes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.